This video is going to cover building a rig for a character, as well as the Biped tab of the eRig tool and one of the utilities in the Utilities tab. So I'm going to start off with the Biped tab. So if you watched the last video about the various parts in the Parts tab, all of these options are based on the options in the Parts tab. So if I generate biped skeleton before I change anything, what it's going to do is create sort of a generic biped. So it has a cog going to a spine. Coming off the spine is two arms with a clavicle and then just an arm. It has a neck and a head, as well as hips under the cog leading to two legs. So if I undo that, you have some options here. So the first is you can set the front axis, as I explained before. That's just which direction your character is facing. So the last one was down here, so if I change this to X and hit generate, now it's facing this way. After that, we have some more options. If we click Add Eyes, then when I generate it, it's going to put in a right and a left eye coming off the head. Add Jaw, as you can imagine, it's going to put a jaw coming off the head. Create Proxy Geometry is going to set that flag on the cog that we talked about over here. And it's just going to say whether or not to create the proxy geometry once you go to build. The arms and the legs, just like on the parts, it'll say, do you want to create just FK, just IK, both IK and FK, and then you have the choice of number of spines. So I'll create 6, and now he has a really long spine. Set it back to 3, and again the neck, really long neck. He's a giraffe man or something. Put that back to 1. So that's the basics of the biped tab. It just makes a simple generic biped skeleton to save you time, and then you can add parts to it if you want to, or take parts off if you don't need them. If you don't need a leg but you want the rest of it, you just click Generate Biped Skeleton and delete the leg. So now I'm going to open, if you open, it's called Rig Base. So this is that character, except without the rig on him. So we're going to make the rig. So he needs about 3 spines. I think it was 1, 2, 3 is going to be good. Torso root there. He only really needs 1 neck. So we're going to leave this the way it is. He doesn't have eyes or a jaw. And I'll leave Create Proxy Geometry on, because why not? I can just always hide it later. So I'll generate. And so now I'm going to use the foreview by hitting space, open the foreview, to place the joints. So I'll start in the front. I'll hide this. So the cog is going to go, you want to keep it centered, so I don't want to move it left and right, but up and down it's going to go somewhere around here. It's more or less right already. The hips, they're going to go around there. And actually, I'm going to show you later that you can mirror joints, so I'm going to get rid of the right side, arm and leg, and just work with the left side. So the femur is about there. The knee we want to place in the knee, which is about there. And it helps to place it on these joints that aren't ball joints, so the knee and the elbow, they're just hinge joints. It helps to place them on a set of edges. It makes the deformation look better, because otherwise it's bending around a flat area, and that just doesn't look right. So then we're going to move the ankle down around here, and then we'll get those from the side later. So normally when you're placing joints, I should say, if you weren't using this tool, it's not good to just move joints, because then you have to deal with realigning them. So originally, if you placed them using the skeleton joints tool, they would all be lined up properly. and they would point at each other. So they look like they're pointing at each other now, but if you look at their rotations, they're actually usually the red circle will be pointing at the next joint, and this time it's not. So you'd have to fix that manually, which isn't that hard, but if you don't have to do it, it's nice. But with this tool, you don't have to worry about it, because when you go to build, it recreates all the joints and adjusts their rotation offsets so that they all point at each other properly. So I'm going to keep placing some stuff. So we have the spine here. Actually, those are more or less right already. The torso root can just sit here somewhere. The clavicle, that goes between the shoulder and the spine. It just takes some getting used to decide on a good place for it. I'm going to try around here. That's probably going to be okay. And I'll put the shoulder up about in the shoulder. The elbow is right here where it dips down. The wrist is over here. And then the hand comes back there. And this is kind of a little big, so if you want to change the size of your joints, there's two ways to do it. You can go to Display, Animation, Joint Size, and that will open this. And you can adjust globally the size of all joints. And then on each individual joint, there's a radius setting, and you can adjust that. And that's just for display to make it easier to see. It doesn't actually really change anything. So then I will get the neck here, right about there. We'll see from the side in a minute. And then the head back there, and the head tip back here. So now we're going to go to the side view, or let's go to the top view first. So you can't do everything in the 4-view, gets kind of confusing. But I'm going to try to do as much of it as I can. And because these are parented, if you don't know, you can hit the up and down keys to go to the parent is up and to the child is down. So I'm going to move this clavicle back a bit. The shoulder, that looks about right. The elbow. Actually, if you saw, when I moved the shoulder, because the elbow and wrist and hand are children, when I move the shoulder, it moves the rest of them. But say I like where the elbow is and I want to move this shoulder. I can hold down the D key. When I do that, the move tool changes to this little circle with some thin lines, and then I can move the joint without moving the joints below it. This is the same as that adjusts the pivot if you add anything else, but with a joint the pivot is where it is. That's basically all it is a pivot. So it just moves it without moving the children. The wrist is a little off. About there is probably good. Hand is good. We'll get that from the side. So now if we go to the side, so the spine does not bend from there. In a real human, the spine is much further to the back. We're not going to put it all the way to the back, but we're going to put it most of the way. And again, I'm holding the D key. I'm going to grab this torso root and pull it back a bit. Doesn't really matter, but just for fun. The hips I'm going to pull back a bit as well. Femur. This knee is obviously wrong, so I'm going to pull it in. Ankle. So the ankle goes where you'd imagine. The ball goes sort of at the somewhere between the ball of the foot and where the first knuckle on the toe is. So in this case, I just have one division here, so I'm going to put it at that division, and that's just going to say where the toes rotate about. And then toe goes to the tip of the foot, and again, it just tells the ball where to point to, and it gets used for some IK stuff later. And the last thing here is heel. And all this does, it doesn't matter if you just use IK on the foot or the leg, but if you use FK, the heel is going to tell it where that back pivot should be, so it should pivot around this point when you want to be about the heel. So their leg looks pretty good. Cog can probably go back a bit. So then the neck, just like the spine, the neck should be much farther back. I'm going to pull it back to about there, maybe down a bit. And the head, you know, somewhere around there. I'm going to make it point towards there. Maybe I'll move this up a bit. So now I'm going to go look at it in the perspective view. Looks pretty good. So now we have these arms, this arm and leg, and we want the one on the other side. So I'm going to bring back up the window. And so what we can do is select the clavicle and the femur. We basically want to mirror this across. That's the x-axis, if you look down here. So we want to mirror it across the x-axis. So if you go to the Utilities tab, Utils, there's a Mirror Axis option. So I'm going to set this to x, because I want to mirror it across the x. And if you'll notice, these say L, because they're on the left side of the character, from his point of view, left. So we want them to say R over here. So if a joint, when you're mirroring, has an L or an R, and you check off Change Side, then it will change the L to an R, the R to an L. If they're down the center like these, it won't change anything. If you were mirroring, say you were mirroring this arm downwards, so along the Y, then you might not want to change the side because it's still on the left. It's just sort of top and bottom. So you can turn that off and it will mirror it without changing the L and the R. But in this case we do want to change it. So I'm going to leave that checked, set it to X, and hit mirror. And so now they're mirrored across. And actually, I forgot I wanted to put fingers on, so one more thing. I'm going to just mirror the leg for now. I'm going to add just a finger. So I'm going to need the base of the finger, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then maybe the tip, so that's 3. And that is on the left, so I'll set create. Move it up. In this case, they're definitely kind of big, so I'm going to shrink them down. Rotate them. So this is going to go, this is in the top view. So the first one's there, and then it's there. Here is a tip. Parent that in. I go back to the front view. I'm going to rotate this up. So in addition to moving, you can also use rotation. You can use scale if you want, though it's not always going to give you the results you want. And that'll all get taken care of when you hit build. It'll fix it. So now I want to mirror that. So now the rig is pretty much done, or the skeleton rather. The skeleton is done. So I'm going to go back to Biped, select the cog, and hit Build Rig. It's going to think for a second, and it's going to spit out a rig. And if you'll notice, it put the hips to the side instead of to the back, and some of the controllers are really huge. So like these fingers, they're huge, much bigger than we need. The head is big. The clavicles are inside his shoulders, well, they're inside his body anyway. So in the next video, we're going to get into adjusting the size of these controllers. It's pretty quick and painless. And so I'll see you there.